Let's talk about dynamically changing colors in Power BI. Without bookmarks or JSON, everything can be done in Power BI with the use of a table, which is really easy to edit and make changes. And if you ever worked with a JSON file or bookmarks, you know with a JSON you need to open it in another tool and then you need to make the changes and then upload it again and see if it has any effect. And with bookmarks, you need to open every visual. And if you want to change something, you need to make the changes there. Takes a lot of time. When I want to implement different color schemes, I want this to be really fast because often I do it to show my customer what the possibilities are. So I do this by using a table and conditional formatting. And I will show you today how you can do that too. And it's really easy. Changes you make are really easy. And it's an ideal way to test different color choices or even give your customer 2 or 3 different options. If you're creating a report for a broad audience, they maybe prefer different options. So let's do that together. So today we are going to create this together. You can click along. I will give you all the examples you need to get the same result as what you see at the moment. And what do you actually see? You see 3 buttons, and this is actually the new slicer visual. And it has the 3 colors we are going to use. There will be a header. The header changes the background color depending on the button we are clicking, and it also changes the font color. We will create a background that changes the background color, and we create one example visual that changes the background color, the font color, and the border color of the visual. And I think after that, you will be able to create a report that dynamically changes color. So let's do this together. So the first step obviously is open Power BI Desktop because we're going to work here. So the first, and once it is opened, and I opened it on my screen for you, you can see mine is completely empty because I want to show you how you can build this from scratch and that it doesn't need to be really difficult. All the data that I'm showing you that we will enter, the hexa codes and the test data, I will put it in the description, in the YouTube description. So you will find it there. It's probably a little bit easier than typing it over while I'm putting everything in the report. So you can completely follow along with the steps I'm taking. So first we want to choose the initial colors. No worries, if you don't like the colors we are going to choose, you can always change them. That's the nice part. And first we need to put them into Power BI. So what I'm going to do, I'm in this completely empty Power BI file. I go to enter data. So home in the ribbon and then enter data. Now you see create table is opened. And here we can give the table a name. I call it color table. You can choose every name you want. It doesn't matter as long as you find it back in your data overview. And then I want to add 3 columns. At the end of this tutorial, there will be more columns, but we need to start easy so it's not too overwhelming. So I start with the name of the theme, the main color, and the background color. And the main color we are going to use for the header, for example, and the background color for the background of our Power BI report. I prepared something there. Don't worry, you don't need to type this yourself. I will put it in the description of this YouTube video so you can just copy it and paste it into your report while you are following along. And then we can say load. Normally, I always advise click edit and make changes where you want to make changes. But this is just text. There's nothing going to happen with this other than that we're using it in conditional formatting. So we can just click load. And once it's loaded, you can see it here. Now we have the color table in our data overview. And if you put it in there, you see exactly the same that you typed. So there's nothing automatically happening, no color changes automatically. We need to configure that in the next step. But this is the behavior we would expect. So the next step we are taking is to add the buttons we are going to use. And these buttons are the new slicer, actually. So if we click on this new slicer visual, which is still in preview, we can click on our main color because this is the color I want my buttons to be. And then you see there, just added there also just the hexacode, still nothing changes. So what are we going to do? First thing, I want to get rid of this title because I don't need that. And then I want my buttons to have the same color as what the text in it says at the moment. So how are we going to do that? We click in the format pane on buttons and then state default. And you can choose different states, like what happens if you hover over them, press on them, selected on them. We need to change all of them, but we're going to start with the default one. And then we say fill. How do we want it to be filled? And there you see at the moment it's white, but there's also this FX button. And FX buttons means conditional formatting is possible, which is awesome and which makes everything we are going to do possible. Because every time you're going to see this button, I can change something myself. And when we click on this, you see you have different options you can choose. And we want field value. What field should we base this on? Well, we want our button to be the main color. So we're clicking on main color. And we say, okay. And then you see the button gets the number, the color that we just configured in our table. And now you still have these values in there, and I don't want them because I don't need them. You can hide them. They are callout values and just off. So now we have 3 buttons. Now I want to change the layout because this is already nice. If you like this, keep it like that, but you can change the shape. So you can say, I, for example, want rounded rectangles because I want them to look like little buttons. And then I resize them a little bit. You need to play around with this. And this is the shape I want them to be. So this is quite a difference. This is the same information like this, but portrayed in a different way, obviously, using conditional formatting. And you see it was just a few clicks. Now, if I click on one of these buttons, of course, nothing happens because we haven't implemented any conditional formatting. Well, the filtering works, but no color changes because there's nothing configured to change colors. Something I want to do first is tweak the buttons a little bit more, because now we have the default state, but what I want to happen when I click on one of these, I don't want it to be black. I want it to be the same color, but then with a border around. And if we go to the format pane and then state selected, you see border, and you can also change the color there with conditional formatting. You could also say just make it black. So you can change this border here, but at the moment, even if I make it really big, you will not see it because when it's selected, it's going black, it's filled black. That's because of the fill. So first I have to change the fill. I will say field value. I want it the same as if it's not selected. And then I want this border when I click on it. But now you see for yellow, this works fine. For blue, this also works fine. You can make it bigger or smaller, but for the dark blue, really hard to see. So what I actually want to do is I want to add another column in my table where I add the hexacode, the color code for the border of my slicer. And that's easy to do. Just go to transform data. There we add that. There you see our table, like the color table. Just go to your table and then applied steps. And there you see this little configuration thingy. Click on it. And there you can add a column. And of course, I also prepared that. We call it border slicer. There they are. And close and apply. So you see, really easy. I just added it. I mean, it's easier when you know which colors you want to use, but it's not rocket science. And then we go to the conditional formatting for the border, field value, color table, and then we choose the border slicer. And there it is. You see, this is light and this is darker because that's what I configured. And then there's one last thing I want to change there. It's when you hover over it. I don't want it to be white. I want it to be a little bit transparent. So we go to hover, and I want the fill to be changed. It's like this, and then we put it a little bit transparent. And we also change the color. We give it this border slicer color. This one more. So you see, it's a lot of tweaking. Now you maybe wonder, like, this sounds like a lot of steps, but you only have to do this once for your visuals, because you all configure them to the table, to the color codes you're choosing there. And in the future, if you want to change colors, you don't have to go here, conditional formatting, choose it, because you already selected it. You can just go to the table and change the color there. So now this is doing exactly what I wanted to do. So we have our buttons. I put them here somewhere in the top. I remove this. Now we have our buttons. Let's change some stuff. Let's start with the header. We will change the background and the font. To start with, I want to create a header with a shape. So I'm selecting a shape. I will choose just a rectangle. I want it to be somewhere here, and put it there. Just put it over the entire length of the screen. So this would be my header. And let's put this in the back, where I put my title, but also my buttons. I see my buttons still have a background. Remove that. Of course, I don't want this blue color. I want the main color to be in this header. So what can I do? I click on it, and I go on shape style, fill, and there we have the conditional formatting button. And I choose field value, and I want the main color to be there. So that's that. And you see now, directly you see some effect. When you click on your buttons, the header will move the color. So that's awesome. So now I also want to add some text. So because all my reports they have some title somewhere, so we put in some text, and this text says sales insights. I mean, really boring. I use that for all my demos, but it will be sales insights. I make it a little bigger and a little bold. It doesn't need to be the most pretty thing, just enough to show you the effect. But now you see the text is always in this font color white, but also we can use some conditional formatting. And this white works really well. If you look at it, it works for all options, but I also want to change it. Maybe I want to make it black for the light colors and white for the darker color. So what can we do? We go again back to transform data, and we go to the color table, and I add a font for the header. Really important, because I don't want to use this font color for the rest of my report, because the background will be different there. But for this header, I want to use it. And this is the same as the border for the slicer. So add it, close and apply. And you can choose anything you like. Maybe you like the white one that is their standard. So I go again. So I go to Sales Insights, I click on the shape again, text, and now I say font color, conditional formatting, field value, and I choose my font header. And we said if it's in this dark blue, it should be white, but it should now be black when I click on the green, and you see that's what's happening. So now we have two things happening. We have the background color changing dynamically, and we also have the font color changing dynamically. So this was quite easy to get here, I hope. If you have any questions, please let me know. I will help you figure this out. And everything we are going to do now, it's actually repeating these steps, because every time you see this conditional formatting button, you will be able to put in, for example, some hexa code. Step 3 is we are going to add a background to our canvas and we are going to change the color there too. So the first thing I want to do is I want to add another shape for my background. Why do I need to do this? And this is one of the limitations. You can't change the canvas background with conditional formatting. So I need to add a shape there. I choose another rectangle, I place it here, and then you see it's also really pretty blue. And now we do the same we did before for the header. We go to shape style and then fill. And there I say I want conditional formatting, rule, field value, not rules, color table. And there I have a background color. So let's choose that. And it's added. I will put the border button to off. And now you see a background has been added. And now when we click on these slicer buttons, you see it changes, which is exactly what we wanted. So now we actually have like 3 themes already for the background and the header. So this is the last step. We will actually add the visual and we will change the font color, the background and the border color. You don't need to change everything just because you can change it, but I want you to show how it works. So in case you want to change it, you know how to do that. So before we can start to visualize some data and actually use this dynamic color changing, we need to add some data. I've prepared some test data that you can really also just use. I will also put it in the description. Really basic data, nothing fancy happening there. And I added by going to enter data and putting it here. It's example data. Really, there's normally this would be in dimensions and fact tables and it would be date table, but this is just for this example to keep it easy. So I copy that, I go to edit because I want to make sure that it has the right format, because sales is like fixed decimal, close and apply. And there we have our example data. So now I put this into my report. So there's the year. We don't want to summarize that. It doesn't make sense, doesn't it? Don't summarize. And I have sales and I have target. And I want this to actually not be in this visual, but in a line and clustered column chart. I want my sales in the column and I want the target on the axis. So now what I want to do is I want to actually change the background. I want to change the border because there's no border at this moment. And I want to change the font color. So how am I going to do that? We go to transform data again. And then we add some columns to our color table. And we go to configuration and there I add 3 columns: background color, border color, and font color. And then I click OK, close and apply. So now we added some more options. First, I want to tackle the background color and the border color. So how am I going to do that? I click on it, size and style, and there we have background. I want this to be a field value. And here we have visual background. And then tackle the border. Go to conditional formatting, field value, color, and border. Then if you click here, check if it works. It works. You can see the border. I said it should be in the same color, so it's yellow, green, and this dark blue. And I said the background should be like a really light version of the main color. And the font, it should be some version of these buttons, but we haven't changed that yet. So now it's the tricky part. You see there's a lot of text going on. You will need to set the conditional formatting for each text field in there. So for example, the title, conditional formatting. And there we can say we want the font. So really make sure if keeping it like in the standard black isn't what you actually like. But otherwise, you also in the legend, you need to change it. Could be a little bit of extra work, just to tell you. And it's important for you to know you just need to do this once, but it can be kind of a lot of work. So I would really focus on what you actually need. And most of the time for me, it's enough to change like the header and the background color and highlight some things in my visuals. And how to highlight stuff in your visual, I will show you now. Because this, I mean, that's exactly what I wanted, but it's not exactly really what I wanted. Because this is still blue, these bars, these columns. Something important, what I'm not showing you now, it only works if you have one column there. If you have more than them, you can't choose conditional formatting for the color of the columns. Maybe in the future, but at the moment it's not possible. So what I'm doing is if I have several columns there, is I choose like a really neutral color, like a gray or something like that. So something that works with all the different colors that can be chosen. So let's do that. I want the color to be, I don't want it to be one color. Now I think about it, I want it to be two colors. I want it to be gray when the target is not hit, because we can see some target line there. Let's change that so it makes more sense. And I see target was hit here and here. So I want this to be in the main color, in this case green. And if it's not hit, I want it to be gray. So how to do that? We need to do some ducks, because we can base it on a field value. And we could make a rule, target hit is 1, then it should be this, target hit is 0, it should be that. But I want to make it a little bit more dynamic, so I create a measure. So we go to new measure, and I say column ducks. Every time I create a measure that has something to do with ducks, I also put it in the title, because then I can search for it. And I also put it in a separate folder. Column ducks. It is. What will it be? It will be a switch statement. And we say if target hit, target, we need to say min target hit. So when it's hit, it's a 1. I want it to be the, can also be min. There will be only one thing because you filter. It will be the main column. And otherwise, I want it to be gray. Just a quick workaround putting gray in there. That's also works, but if I wanted to change the color, I need to go back to the stacks. But I first want to create this switch. And now I go color, field value. You see, it's green when it's selected, and otherwise it's gray, and in this case it's black. So it works like I want it to work. Now we need to fix the neutral color, because I don't want workarounds in my solution, especially not when I'm teaching other people how to do it. So I'm going to color table, and we add some neutral color there. No workarounds when teaching other people stuff. Let's call it neutral color. Maybe you need it for other visuals too. Good. Close and apply. And there you see you could also change the neutral color if you want it to be different for different choices. And now we need to change that in the DAX. We go to min neutral color. There we are. Should be working fine now. And you see, it works. Isn't it amazing? I love this. I really do. And I could cut out most of the scenes because you don't need to see all these takeouts of what I'm doing. But every time something works, I really have this big smile. Now I also want to change, going back, I want to change the line. Where is it? Line. I also want to, there I can't change for some reason the color, but let's make it neutral, make it black, and I make it dashed and a little less prominent. Okay, makes much more sense. And then give it reasonable title, and we put the title in the middle. And there we are. So you can do this with everything, almost everything, because there are parts of visuals that you can't change with conditional formatting. You need to kind of figure out which these are. I can name some of them. So there are some limitations. For example, if you would add another color here, let's say we also want target to be in the columns. There you see the conditional formatting doesn't work. You can also see there's no option to do this anymore. There's also something, for example, in a table or a matrix. Let's do this like this. And there you have the column headers, and there you also can't use conditional formatting for the text color. So in a table can be a little bit tricky. You only have this gray as an option, so you should make sure that it still fits in your dashboard. If you're not using a table or several columns next to each other, you don't have that issue. I, most of the time, like I said before, use this to create a header, a background, borders that change to give it more, to give it a good look and feel, and sometimes to highlight things in my visuals, but I'm not uh, doing it on everything possible in my report because sometimes then some visuals don't work. I hope this helps you when you want to use conditional formatting and dynamically change the color with the table in Power BI. Like I said before, there are some limitations. Always look what works best for you. I mainly use it to change like the header and the background and the border of my visuals because that's really easy and I always know, regardless of which color choice my end user takes, I know that these colors will match because I put them in the table. Um, Pick the parts that work best for you. You don't need to do anything like exactly like someone else does. Just choose what works for you and use that. So I hope this helped. Any questions, please put them in the comments. And thank you for watching this.